y'all. Hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all. Listen. Y'all. Okay, this might be cut short. Look, it's already cut short. Y'all, I had a new gig. It kind of goes right into 6:30, so please pardon me for being tardy to the party. Look, as you can see, I still got my headset on. Listen, life is lifing, but we are here for another edition of Dinner and Dating. Y'all, I am like legit multitasking, so we're gonna jump right into it. Listen, I wanted to be more prepared for y'all than I was, but ultimately today I want to talk about being a giver when it comes to dating. And so I always say, like, in relationships, so many people kind of miss out on like opportunities for love and different things like that because they are like so focused on, look, let's hide that. Oh, y'all probably can't hear me because this is connected. We're gonna have to keep this here. So it can sometimes appear that people are just more so focused on themselves, wanting to just please themselves. They want to be served in a relationship, and they don't always come into it wanting to serve. So that's what I want to talk about today. So again, let's always be interactive with me in the chat. Please feel free to leave comments. Please also be patient with me because Facebook Live has a little bit of a lag. So if you leave a comment, I might not be able to see it for a couple of minutes. Also, just say hey, because I don't always know who's watching, who's joining me. And so I love to be able to just say hello. And so say hello to me in the chat if you so desire. If not, don't worry about it. It's totally fine. But yeah, I just want to talk about giving in relationships. So there is a scripture that says, like, give and it'll be given back to you. Pressed down, shaken together, running over, like will men give into your bosom. And I wish I could think of the passage right now. If somebody can think of the passage, y'all let me know. I really want to say that it's in, is it in Luke? Luke 9? Maybe. I want to read it. Or maybe it's like Luke 11. But either way, I always say, like, even though typically like that passage is referencing like giving financially, I always say, like, it doesn't necessarily say that right then. The context around it is financial, but it shows like just give and it'll be given, right? And so I think that very often maybe it's Luke 12. Maybe I wasn't so far off. Or maybe I was. But even this in Luke 12, I like this too, because it talks about giving, but also it talks about just believing God, right? And I think that very often when it comes to things that we are not willing to give, it's often because we're not trusting God with that particular thing. And so even in love, it can be that way. Like, so often we're not willing to give when it comes to love because we don't really trust God with our love life. We don't really trust God with guarding our heart and protecting us from harm. We don't really trust that we are safe in relationships. And so I think very often, even when we are seemingly like deficient, when you notice a deficiency, typically like that's an area of opportunity for you to lean in. So I think about like how people talk about fear. And if you are fearful, let's just say, even if you're afraid to swim, right? Most times, if you're afraid of swimming, people will encourage you to just start getting comfortable with the water, right? And you may not necessarily start off putting your head underwater, but you just want to get comfortable, maybe just stepping into the water, playing in the water, right? And then maybe you start getting comfortable kind of sitting down in water, or like, like if there's a place where you can sit, but maybe just putting more of your body in water. Some people who are afraid of water might just start off dipping their toe in there, or sitting on the edge of a pool or the edge of a lake, or at the shoreline, at the beach, and just putting their feet in and letting the water kind of get on them. And so there's so oftentimes a process when it comes to overcoming fear. But you also put yourself in a position where you can be taught how to do the thing that you're afraid to do by somebody who's good at it. So if you are afraid of swimming, you might want to hire a swim coach or a swim instructor so they can teach you how to swim. And I was at a conference over the weekend, and one of the guys was on stage talking about how he hired a swim coach to teach his wife and his children how to swim, particularly his son, his wife and his son how to swim. And so, he was saying, like, his son was playing in the pool with the instructor and he was nearby, and he was like waving at his dad and just kind of saying, "Hey daddy, look at me. Like, I'm in the pool, I'm doing stuff." And like the swim instructor very firmly, checked the little boy. And so the gentleman on stage was saying, like, he didn't really like the way that the instructor spoke to his son, but he also understood that that was necessary, because when you're in water, especially if you're inexperienced in water, it's very important that you follow certain safety rules, because it could really be life or death if you don't know what you're doing. So a child can't be in the pool playing around or being distracted or different things like that. And he said, even though he was ready to fire that dude for the way that he corrected his son, he realized how what he was doing was very important. And within weeks, his son knew how to swim. And I think it might have even been less than weeks, plural, but he taught his son how to swim very, very quickly. He taught his wife how to swim very, very quickly. And then he started referring this guy to everybody he knew. And it was an older gentleman and everything, but he knew what he was doing. And even with people who were fearful of swimming, fearful of being in water, they became very confident when they were taught. They became very confident when they allowed themselves to submit to the process and submit to the thing that actually made them fearful. And I say the same thing about love. We have to overcome some of these fears when it comes to love. And I think that very often we are resistant to, actually dig deep when it comes to love. We're resistant to actually give when it comes to love. And we're so focused on like choosing a partner based on what we can receive. It's because of fear, right? And it might not even be like fear that, fear of being loved. It might be fear of being vulnerable and being taken advantage of. It could be, a lot of times people are setting up these rules for who they want to date or marry, not because they're actually looking for a partner who is suitable for them and somebody who's really compatible and someone who they can grow with. They're just like, no, I need to find somebody who won't hurt me. That's why I have these parameters set, because I don't want to be hurt again. Or because I don't want to waste my time with someone who's not ready, or, whatever the case may be. But it's typically a self-centered reason. And not to say that you can't have preferences. I know that we talked about preferences last week. It's not to say that you can't have things that you're looking for in a partner. You should have some idea of what you're looking for. You should have an idea of who you are, which is what we talked about recently, like how important it is to know yourself so that you can appropriately choose a partner. So like, I'm not coming against preferences, and even like non-negotiables. I lean when it comes to non-negotiables, unless it's something that's actually sacrificing your personal values and different things like that. Like, yes, by all means. But sometimes people are making their preferences non-negotiable, and they're missing out on really quality partners because of it. But it's also because very often we want to receive, and not give. So I want you to be a giver. And even scripture supports you being a giver. It's saying give, and whatever you give will be given back to you. It's the law of reciprocity. It's just the way that God works. Right? And then not only does he give that thing back to you, but he multiplies it. It says, pressed down, shaken together, will men give back into your bosom, right? And pour into you. And so when you give love, when you give respect, when you give affection, when you give concern and genuine care, when you give gifts, when you give quality time, when you give, whatever you give will be given back to you, and it'll be multiplied. So if you find yourself withholding, and this takes some real serious self-evaluation, right? This takes some real serious self-awareness. If you recognize that you're withholding from someone, and again, y'all, I'm kind of considering over time, right? Of course, to a degree, there's a level of withholding that you're going to have when you're first getting to know someone and different things like that. But even in that, I always say, still be aware of that, because you might be withholding even in the beginning a little bit more than what you need to be, right? Like some people are so guarded when they meet someone, it's as if they can't even have a regular friendly conversation. And you don't want to be that way. You want to make sure that you're at least, especially if you want to be in a relationship, there has to be a level of openness that you bring to the table, a level of curiosity, but also a level of vulnerability that you are willing to allow someone to get to know you. You can't do that if you are not open. So I'm not saying that you have to go on a first date and tell your whole life story, even though sometimes that can happen. But what I am saying is be aware of how you might be pulling back maybe a little bit too much even in a relationship, and how you might not be willing to be a giver in a relationship. And everybody, a lot of people say there are two types of people in the world. There are givers and there are takers. And sometimes there's a little bit of in between, I say. But even if you are a taker, even takers tend to have things that they're willing to give. So I just say be aware, because if you are in a relationship, you want to be willing to give, because you want to be able to maintain your relationship over time, especially if you're wanting to get married. Some people are dating and they just want to have a good time. They just want to have companionship. They're really not interested in dating, but they are interested in having someone in their life who is special and a partner and whatever. But even then, even if you're not even thinking about marriage, if you're wanting someone to be in your life long term, you got to be willing to give. And I'm not saying sacrifice who you are. I'm not saying give everything and not receive anything. I think that there's a level in a relationship where you should be willing to give and you should be willing to receive. And both parties should be giving and receiving. That's how relationships actually excel, is if you have two people who are willing to give and receive. Because even from the giving side, you can't just give all the time, because then you'll feel tapped out, and then you'll start trying to pour from an empty cup, and then next thing you know, you start resenting your partner because you're always the one giving and never receiving. So there's still balance that you have to take into play here. But very often, and we see it all over social media, and Lord knows I hope it's not happening as much in real life as it is on social media, but so many people are just mad selfish in their relationships, and they don't want to give anything. They just want to receive it all, and really have the nerve to be entitled as if they should only receive and never have to give. And eventually those, hey, let me not say, because some of those people, they eating good. They are eating good, some of those folks. But I would say that eventually those people will end up by themselves, or they may not even end up by themselves, because those type of people will find somebody else real quick. But those are sometimes the type of people who say, you know what, that was the one who got away, and I messed that up, or whatever, because I was not willing to give, and I took so much from that person, and they ended up leaving after they got fed up, and I missed out on the best thing that happened to me, and different things like that. So you want to make sure that you are willing to give. At this conference that I referenced earlier that I went to over the weekend, Coach Ro, I don't know if you all know her, Rochelle T. Parks, she was there, and she mentioned during a women's breakout session that very often we see like needs are not being met in our communities, because if everybody is showing up to get, then nobody gets. But if everybody shows up ready to give, then everybody gets. And I loved when she said that, because I think that we see that, especially even as believers, we see that, I mean, the body of Christ, right? Like even in the scriptures where it talks about us being members of one body. Now that I do know where that is. I missed out on the give, and it should be given back to you. I see DeMarcus in here, I think. And I see my cousin. Do y'all know what scripture that is? Oh, hey, Crystal. I love it. Hey, girl. Yes, it just doesn't apply to people who are dating. It also applies to friendships and other kind of relationships. Absolutely. Like, you want to be willing to give. And like, even in 1 Corinthians 12. Oh, I lied to y'all. No, it is. Yeah, I do know where it is. So in 1 Corinthians 12, it's, oh, you can tell these some blue light glasses, y'all. I'm so sorry, y'all. My light is dead and I don't have anything to charge it right now. But anyway, but it's still kind of bright. So hopefully y'all can see me pretty well. But in 1 Corinthians 12, verse 12, it says the human body has many parts, but the parts make up one whole body. So it is with the body of Christ. Some of us are Jews, some of us are Gentiles, some are slaves and some are free. But we've all been baptized into one body by one spirit, and we all share the same spirit, right? And then it says, yes, the body has many different parts, not just one part. If the foot says, I'm not a part of the body because I'm not a hand, that doesn't make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear says, I'm not a part of the body because I'm not an eye, would that make it any less part of the body? If the whole body were an eye, would you hear? Or how would you hear? Excuse me. And it says, or if the whole body were an ear, how would you smell anything? Yeah, how would you smell anything? It says, but our bodies have many parts, and God has put each part just where he wants it. How strange a body would be if it only had one part. Yes, there are many parts, but only one body. The eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. The head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. In fact, some parts of the body that seem weakest and least important are actually the most necessary. And the parts we regard as less honorable are those we clothe with the greatest care. So we carefully protect those parts that should not be seen, while the more honorable parts do not require this special care. So God has put the body together such that extra honor and care are given to those parts that have less dignity. This makes for harmony among the members so that all members care for each other. If one part suffers, all the parts suffer with it. And if one part is honored, all the parts are glad. All of you together are Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. And then it starts talking about, just like certain parts in the church. But all of that to say, every single person has significance. Every single person is important to make things work. So if you're in a relationship, whether it be with a spouse, a partner who you want to make a spouse, or even like my sister said, in friendships or family relationships, or any kind of, even at work, okay, even in your career, even in your business, like everybody plays a role. So you can't just go into any type of environment with other people expecting to get and not give, to keep on expecting to receive. And especially if everybody is like that. Can you imagine if everybody shows up to a board meeting, a business meeting, and everybody is like, oh, I just came here to receive? How is any work going to get done? If everybody is expecting to receive something and nobody is giving, then what are we going to accomplish here? And so it's the same thing in relationships. You can't just go into a relationship, especially a romantic one that you expect is going to last a long time, expecting to just receive, and to get, and not be willing to give. So I say, like, start practicing that in dating, because if you get married, my hope is that you won't wait to get married to start giving to your partner. My hope is that you will practice giving in dating so that you can be ready to do that for the rest of your life. Because in a marital relationship, something that's meant to last until death parts you, like, you're not going to get away with just being someone who wants to receive and not give. right? And you don't want to be with somebody either. Let's just be real. Even people who have a greater tendency to be takers, so to speak, even takers don't want to be with another taker. Right? So it's like, even everybody wants to receive something. And so if everybody only wants to receive and nobody wants to give, you're not going to get very far. So be conscious of that when you're dating. Be conscious of what you are willing to give in your relationship. And if you are the type of person who has been hurt, kind of like what we talked about before, like very often we withhold giving because we've experienced some type of heartbreak or trauma or different things like that. If you recognize that you are that type and that you're more prone to want to receive than to give, then I would say start leaning in, start being more conscious of all of that, right? Like if you're willing to be a person who, if you are afraid to give, start leaning in a little. Be aware of those areas in which you're afraid to give. Like if I know, like I recognize, like, okay, let's just say you've been cheated on. Like I've been cheated on before. And so, oh goodness, sorry y'all. I gotta pause because I got stuff to do. Sorry. I'm a multitask, but like I've been cheated on before, right? So it can be very easy for me to like resist, kind of letting my guard down quickly, right? Because I'm like, is this brother gonna be faithful or whatever? Like, and thankfully I'm just very blessed to have married a man who is like loyal, even to a fault to a degree, right? And so it's it was important to me to find somebody who was faithful, but I also had to consider, like, I don't want to, first of all, I don't want to hold him responsible for anybody else's actions. Let's just start there. I want to make, like, even when I was, and I really dealt with this already by the time that he and I started dating. So it really wasn't a big deal, but you have to be conscious of that kind of stuff. Like if you know that you've been cheated on and you are looking to have a partner who is faithful and all of that, you also must be aware of what you might be withholding from something because you're afraid of being cheated on. Like you have to consider that. You have to consider, like, hey, am I withholding my affection? Am I withholding my trust? Am I withholding, just am I like not allowing myself to be open and vulnerable, right? Because all of those things play a role in not only how you will treat that person, but how your relationship is going to go. So like, if you recognize that you have some of those hangups because maybe, and this is just an example, right? But this, I'm saying these things because I want you to be aware. If you know that you are afraid to really give because you've been hurt before, then start leaning in slowly, right? If I know that I've been cheated on and so maybe I'm withholding myself and withholding trust and things like that, like maybe I start off by like leaning in and just starting with, hey, I have some trust issues. Even starting off with just being vulnerable and just being honest with your partner and saying, hey, I've experienced infidelity in a past relationship, and it is never my desire to hold you responsible for something that you haven't done to me. However, I do want to make you aware that this is something I'm working through. Or like if you notice that I'm a bit guarded, this is why. But I really want to be open with you. So just know, like, and just saying it out loud. So just know I'm really working hard to address some issues that I have with trust, but it can be sometimes a little bit difficult for me to trust people, and just see how their reaction, see what their reaction might be. Because I guarantee you, even with just saying this has been a problem for me in the past, I'm aware of it, I'm working on it. I never want to hold you responsible for another man's mistakes or another woman's mistakes or whatever. Even that, just being open about it and honest about it, that's you leaning in. Even it's you leaning in, right? And certainly work on your stuff, right? Like work on those things in your personal time, because again, that's not something that somebody else is responsible for fixing in you or resolving in you. Now, are there people out there who are just like, I love you so much, you deserve to be happy, I am going to go above and beyond to show you that you deserve better than what you receive from that other dude or that other chick. Like, there are people like that. Those are really big givers, right? But like, even just being aware of those things, leaning into those things, addressing them, right? Because sometimes leaning in also just means that you don't do foolish things. Like, just because you were cheated on doesn't mean that you go into a new relationship checking somebody's phone or making a big deal if they don't give you the password to their phone or whatever. Like, some people really, they go overboard and they start becoming people who are just trying to receive, right? Because that is also an indication that you don't want to give. You don't want to give of yourself. Because you don't want to be hurt again, right? So like, these are things that you have to address. So sometimes leaning in is also resisting the urge to go and do something inappropriate, right? Or to demand something of someone who hasn't given you a reason to not trust them. And so those are things that you want to be conscious and aware of, because even though that doesn't really seem to be like related to giving and being willing to be a giver in a relationship, those are those blind spots that are important to address, especially because they can go untouched. They can go unaddressed very easily and then end up affecting a relationship that is going well. But because you're not aware of how you're withholding or desiring to be more of a taker or a getter than a giver, when you ignore those types of things, it can really still impact the new relationship that you're in or the new relationship that you want to be in. And so you got to be aware of those things too. Those things that might hinder you from being a giver, even if you know that you're a natural giver. Like I have a girlfriend who is a natural giver, and I have accused her in times past of giving too much too soon. I too have been guilty of giving too much too soon and different things like that. But it's not even really giving too much too soon sometimes, because like maybe even in what we're willing to give, like that, like some people might withhold what they give because of previous situations, but also you still have to guard yourself. You still have to be aware of like how your giving is impacting you and how it's impacting your partner. Because also what happens when you give too much too soon, so to speak, you might start resenting the other person for not giving back to you. And it's not their fault that you gave so much. Like, and that's the thing too about being a giver. When you give, it's not to manipulate the other person into giving back to you. That's not what we're looking for. You're not giving in order to manipulate. You're not giving to be stomped all over either. But as you give, number one, you get to see how the other person responds and pay attention. Keep your eyes open. If you realize that you are giving and that you are being intentional about giving, and you are just, being yourself and just wanting to love on that person, whatever, pay attention. If you notice that person is not giving back to you, maybe dig in and figure out why, and have more conversations. Like, I think like that tends to be the problem too, especially for those who are givers, because sometimes people who are natural givers can tend to give a lot, and then they don't get a lot in return, or it's just a different measure, right? Because like natural givers tend to give more. It doesn't mean that the person that they're with isn't giving anything. They're just, they might not be matching the level of giving, but they might not be natural givers, right? And they might still be working through some things. Or it's very possible that the other person is not giving because there's something else in their life that's impacting their ability to give. And so that's why it's important to even be aware of yourself, because it also gives you space and grace to kind of ask questions. Like, if you recognize or if you feel like you're giving more than your partner, then you have space to inquire about that. You have space to say, you know what, I really feel like, our investment in the relationship is not equal. And then when you start to say, I really feel like, I do all of these things for you and it just doesn't seem to be reciprocated. And what you might find is this. You might find that the person just gives differently than you do. And the way that they give is maybe unconventional for you, or just not as easily recognizable because it looks different. And so then you have to realize, like, oh, well, this person is giving. They're just giving in a different way than I am. And this is why I wrote the book Record of Right, because it really gives us space to observe. It encourages us to pay attention to the things that our husbands are doing well, right? And sometimes when you recognize, like, oh, my husband takes out the trash every week. My husband, brings me flowers, or, he takes care of the kids. When I get home from work, I never have to worry. Like, the kids are always fed, and, different things like that. When you start to pay attention, then you start to learn more about your partner. So if you are being intentional about looking for the good in your partner and looking for the ways in which they give, you might start learning what their giving style looks like. Maybe you are more of a giver when it comes to like cooking and cleaning and different things like that. And maybe they're more of a giver when it comes to quality time. Maybe they're the one who plans the dates. Maybe they're the one who remembers the birthdays and the important dates and all of those things. And it might look different because maybe you're a gift giver. Like, I think that that's also kind of a thing. Like, people who are more gift givers can sometimes typically we tend to expect people to give to us in the way that we give. And so it's kind of like, if you've ever read like the 5 love languages, the love language that you have, the one that speaks to you the most, is typically the one that you give the most. So if someone else receives love differently, they most likely give love differently. And if it's different than yours, like, it might be harder to recognize. So that's why it's important to be not only self-aware, but be aware of your partner. If you feel like you're giving more and they're not giving as much, and maybe it's becoming really, 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 really lopsided. I mean, and certainly a little bit of wavering. It's real life. We're people. But if it seems like really lopsided, then maybe that means that you need to pay attention to the ways in which they give, or you need to have some conversations and give space for them to kind of educate you on how they give, because they might be feeling like, oh, I'm giving just as equally, right? And you might not recognize that. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to those types of things, because it can be very easy to overlook. So all of this to say, be a giver. Be aware of the ways in which you are giving or not giving, and be aware of the ways in which your partner might be giving and it looks differently than you. And just be willing to explore and learn, right? Like, be willing to learn the person that you are dating, or if you're just getting to know that person. Y'all, ask questions. Dating is for a lot of people say, like, dating is for the purpose of gathering data. You're gathering data on this person to figure out who they are, how they move. Is this person compatible with you? Is this somebody who you can really commit to? Is this someone, like, this is a question I used to ask even when I was dating my husband, like, if this particular thing about him never changes, am I okay? Like, do I love him enough, like, to stay and commit to him for the rest of my life? Or if this thing does change, right? Because sometimes things that you want to change don't change. And then sometimes things that you don't want to change do change, right? Like, and so you have to consider that you're with a person who is evolving on a regular basis, and you are a person who is evolving on a regular basis. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to who you're dating and gathering data about them, because this is a person who you're going to be giving to for a long time. This is a person that you're going to be receiving from for a long time. And so this is a person that you want to know that whether they change or don't change, whether it's for the good or for the worst, like, you want to make sure that this is a person who you are still willing to love unconditionally, or learn to love unconditionally. This is still a person that you are willing to give to. And so pay attention to that in your relationships. Pay attention to yourself in your relationships. Are you giving or are you only receiving? If you have a healthy mix of both, I say you're on the right track. But be aware. Pay attention to yourself. Pay attention to your partner. And just be a giver. And know that when you give, it will be given back to you and it's going to be multiplied. It's going to be good. And so, and I always say, like, we like to say that on the good end, but also consider it on the opposite end. If you are giving disrespect, dishonor, if you are giving suspicion, if you are giving accusations, if you are giving just anything that is negative, that's going to come back too. That's going to come back too. It is going to be multiplied. And certainly if you are looking to be in a long-term relationship and a relationship that lasts until death parts you, there's going to be a lot of phases to that. I'm only 4 years in and I've already seen how, like, there can be a lot of different phases of giving and taking, and, you know, in life, like, life hits and it changes people, and, you know, different circumstances will change how you react to a certain thing and all of that kind of stuff. So sometimes you'll find, like, oh, I didn't really think that I was giving this particular thing in a negative way, but now I'm receiving the fruit of that. Right? Like, sometimes you might not think it's a big deal. You might be giving dishonesty. Let's keep it basic and something that people can do pretty easily, right? Like, this is something that comes up often in dating relationships, where there's a woman who, or a man, either way, but a lot of times people accuse women of doing this, right? Like, even there are jokes about it. Like, if a woman says she's okay, she's not really okay. If you ask her what's wrong and she says nothing, something's wrong, right? And, like, that is sowing dishonesty. That is giving dishonesty. If your partner asks you, hey babe, how's it going today? And you just say, oh, it's going well. And you know good and doggone well that it is not going well. Trust me, that stuff comes back around in a way that might not feel so pretty. Even basic things. And you might think that you are just, like, protecting your partner from, like, hearing all of the crap that happened in your day, or you might think that you are maybe even protecting your partner from, like, the uglier parts of you, or you might think, like, oh, well, I just don't want to seem like I'm, you know, complaining all the time, so I'm just going to say that I'm okay, or you might be more upset than you really want to let off, and you say nothing's wrong, but something really is wrong. And so all of that kind of stuff, like, it doesn't start a good cycle. And so even if you don't want to talk about it right then, you can still say, like, you know what, I actually had a terrible day, but I really don't want to talk about it. Or, you know what, actually, I'm not doing all right. And you really hurt me earlier this morning when we got off the phone and you didn't say I love you, or whatever. Whatever it might be, being even something so simple can be something that gets multiplied when it comes back to you, right? Like, even there's a scripture that says, like, be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap, right? Like, so whatever you give, you're going to receive from it. You're not going to plant a seed for strawberries and get an apple tree, right? But whatever you give is but you might sow a seed for one strawberry, right? It was one seed, but you're going to get a lot of fruit from that one seed, right? So you want to make sure that you're sowing the right things. You want to make sure that you are being a giver in your relationships. And so just consider that. Think about that. Think about how that might affect you in your dating life, especially as you're looking for a partner. Pay attention to how much you might be withholding, and then pay attention to what you are giving, and make sure the stuff that you're giving is good stuff. And if it's not good stuff, change that. And I know it's easier said than done, y'all. This is the reality of life. But Like, if you are aware of it, you can do something about it. So my job here is to make sure that you become aware. So be aware of the things that you are giving or not giving. Be aware of your tendency to want to receive more than maybe you want to give. And I'm like, I love to receive. Listen, I love to receive. And I don't know. Sometimes in certain circumstances, I'm more of a taker than a giver. And there are other situations where I'm more of a giver than a taker. So you even have to be aware, like, that sometimes, even if your overarching personality is like, oh, I'm a giver, you might realize that because of heartbreak, trauma, various circumstances that have happened throughout your life, that when it comes to love, you're more of a taker because you have been taken from so much. So you have become a taker when it comes to love, and you'll give somebody the shirt off your back. But when it comes to somebody loving you, you won't give your heart away. So be aware that you can still be a giver in certain ways and also a taker in others. So just be aware, make sure that you are practicing some balance, and give your partner an opportunity to know the real you, and give yourself an opportunity to really know someone else. If you want to be in a relationship, if you want to be married, if you want to be in a long-term love, romantic relationship, there's going to be some give and take. So make sure that you're going into it with some balance on you. Be willing to receive. Be willing to give. Be aware of the areas where you're withholding. Be aware of the areas where you might be giving too much too soon. And be aware of reciprocation, right? And I'm not saying that it has to always be equal, because you shouldn't be keeping track like that anyway. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because that can be exhausting, overwhelming, and it ends up not being real love, right? Like, so it's not like but you can recognize over time, like, this person seems to be taking more from me. And like that, and you have to be aware of those things, because you might realize, like, this person really doesn't love me like they say they do. Or again, you might still just not be recognizing certain things. So give yourself an opportunity to know yourself, know the other person. Ask questions. Ask questions, y'all. In relationships, it's so easy to make assumptions. Whether you love the person or not, it can be so easy to make assumptions based off of lots of things. Nonverbal communication, like various responses over time. Like, it can be so easy to just make assumptions about a person, especially even if it's somebody who you've known for a long time. You kind of get to this point where you're like, oh, I know this person. I know how they're going to respond. I know this, I know that. Even then, ask questions, be curious, because again, the person that you're dating or married to, or will be married to, that person is changing all the time, just like you are. So what was true for you 10 years ago may not be true for you now. And it'll be the same way with your partner. So even if you get to know a person, if they change, you don't know this new part about them. So give yourself space to get to know people, and allow yourself space to be known by people. And make sure that you're coming to the table willing to give, not just get. I love y'all. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for your patience with my multitasking and a little bit of my tardiness. Y'all, this new gig is indefinite. So I may be starting, 5 to 10 minutes late each Monday, but trust me, I'm still rolling through to join you all for dinner and dating every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Unless otherwise noted, I'll be here. From in between 6:30 and 7:30, I'll still be available. Or we might need to change it. I don't know. But, hopefully this will be a good time for us to maintain. So we'll see over time. But I will certainly let you all know. But thank you all so much for joining, those who tuned in. And definitely leave a comment If you are wanting me to talk about something specific related to dating, again, this is really more so for people who are, I created it really to like appeal to Christian women in their 30s, but I love seeing my brothers on here and even like my people in their 40s and stuff. And it, you know, whether you're younger or older doesn't really make a difference. You can still benefit from this. But we really want to make sure that we're addressing some of the issues that single people are having in like their 30s and up. Especially when they're trying to live a life that honors the Lord and different things like that. And they tired of being single. So we're just addressing the challenges that a lot of single people face in their 30s. I was single in my 30s. I didn't get married until I was 36. So this is for those of us who are still struggling. So definitely all my married people, we love to have your feedback. All of my single people, I'd love to have your feedback too. Is this helping y'all? Do you want me to talk about other things? We want to have real conversations because I realize that it's not happening a lot. So I don't want y'all to be forsaken. We are the body of Christ, right? We all need each other and we all want to make sure that we're doing our part because everybody is significant. And so I want to make sure I'm doing my part to serve you. I'm all about love. And so definitely want to make sure that I serve you all as best as I can. So y'all take care. Thank you all so much for joining me. I will post this on YouTube since Facebook doesn't retain stuff anymore. Like the lives on Facebook don't last longer than 30 days anymore. So I will be posting this to my YouTube page so you can find this there later. But y'all take care. Have a great night. Happy spring too. Like it's Michigan and the weather is finally starting to warm up. We're starting to get some sun on a consistent basis. So I appreciate it. But y'all take care. Have a great night. God bless you.